If you've never heard of Twitter, Facebook, MySpace, Tumblr, and Foursquare, you might as well flip channels. But if you're sitting there wondering how you can make people follow your YouTube feed, make money from your blog, or convince your CMO of putting some money on social media, then stick around. You might be interested in what's cooking. Social media marketing is the outrage this season, and has been for a little while. But most brands are still trying to figure out how it works, who will help them get the most out of it, and how to become the next big thing. Is it really something new? Or is it just another tool in the shed of marketing? Is it really useful? Can we see or measure results from having 1 million Facebook fans?
We live in a time of scandal, bankruptcy, litigation, and of course revolution. It's an amazing changing world. There's a tsunami occurring in marketing right now. And I think that tsunami is both bewildering, alarming, but most importantly, full of opportunity for brands. There's a lot of changing times in terms of the pressure that brands are under and how marketing needs to not just react, but also think ahead in terms of what its role is going to be.
On this episode of Market, connectivity, interactivity, and social sharing. An attempt of showing why this wave or real-time marketing is here to stay. How to make the most out of social networks, and how to get consumers truly involved with your company. It's long since been a world where companies pushed messages out there and expected consumers to act according to stimulation. Today, consumers engage with brands and have become brand builders. New networks and platforms for conversation make for outspoken consumers that expect answers from the brands they get involved with.
It's become a far more complicated picture. It's far more complicated, it's far more fluid, it's difficult to make it, each part accountable. It's making us rethink the formula of marketing and where its emphasis should be. That's big.
All industries are currently being presented with challenges because the internet is developing at such a rapid rate. Technological advancements are changing their day-to-day lives.
Social sharing is changing the economics of marketing. Brands now need to be able to provide a space for action to involve clients. And as the stage is changing, marketers need to find ways to adapt in order to stay relevant.
About 4 years ago, very few companies had a digital marketing budget. So here we are, people are organizing companies and marketing budgets around screens. So suddenly it's splintered and exploded the business. But what I find to be the most important part of this change, this fundamental seismic shift that's occurring, is that a lot of these trends, like social media, are levers. They're new levers to the marketing toolbox. This isn't dumbfounding or that scary. It's just a lever, a very powerful lever. And what a wonderful new tool to have in a toolbox of marketing. So we're all getting used to that right now. We're thinking ahead.
Social media has become a way to change the rules of the game and keep up with the expectations of the market. When used right, it's one of the most powerful tools in the toolbox because it's reaching out to consumers and letting them be a part of the story.
When you're interacting with the online community, you reach people you might not have reached otherwise. The online community makes the world smaller.
To me, the idea of being in the digital world is about creating conversation. It's about how to get them involved in your brand. I think Coca-Cola's done an amazing story. They're up to like 15 million people on their Facebook page. In terms of social media brands, they're it. And what Coca-Cola's done is they're using what's called a fans first strategy. So what would a fan want to do?
Social media also serves as a relatively inexpensive platform for organizations to implement marketing campaigns, and it's easily accessible to anyone with internet access. Increased communication for organizations fosters brand awareness and often improved customer service.
Social media marketing is a little bit of communications. It's a little bit of personality, and it has a lot to do with understanding the way word travels on the internet across multiple different platforms. But on every platform, you have to communicate with the audience the way they both best want to be spoken to. And a really savvy social media marketer understands the idiosyncratic differences between each market before they begin engaging with the platform.
It's impacting strategy, it's impacting organizational structure. It's changing how budgets are being thought through. Brands having to think about their marketing in very different ways from, say, the old 60-second spot, which is still a very powerful medium.
You can reach anyone at any time, anywhere in the world. These platforms are essentially free. What the cost is your time spent on them.
So it's creating a lot of splintering. It's moving it forward where it counts. The journey of the customer is still the same in the sense of I'm unaware of something, I'm aware of something, I become interested in something, I now desire it, and now I'm going to purchase it. That hasn't changed.
The main objective of any social media effort is to create content that attracts attention and encourages to share.
So many smart new platforms are emerging every day. It can be quite confusing and honestly exhausting, trying to position yourself on all of them while at the same time maintaining your brand identity.
People spend increasing time in the online world. A study in 2007 showed people spending an average of 25 hours online per week. In 2010, it was almost double that amount. So, if consumers are spending around 6 hours online daily, how can brands afford not to be online?
Where do you think everything is going? I mean, the world's not going to stop right now. That doesn't mean everybody should be selling through the web. There's real life stores. I have a bricks and mortar store, but we leverage this platform to drive business to that.
Up next, why everyone's doing it and how to cope. Find out how to reach out to your audience, what ways consumers are shaping brands, and who will stand and survive and who will drown in the crowd. Some may have initially seen social media as a playground for the younger generations, but it is now undeniable that social media helps shape business, create visibility in the online marketplace, so companies are compelled to make an appearance.
This is where the customer takes control of the brand, that they push back on the traditional techniques of marketing, they make it a lot harder to be differentiated, and they have control.
Harvard Business School claims social media and networking to be the most significant business development of 2010. It's about the immediacy, about being visible and ready for action, willing to respond to the questions that consumers have, or letting them know about updates of what comes next for the brand.
Engaging with actual customers, that context that you create with a customer matters when they're buying. Really, it's no different than push media, no different than television, print, radio. The only difference is instead of pushing, you're pulling. But it's the same end result. We're building impressions that convert in the aisle when people are making buying decisions, whether that's in the aisle of an actual store or ordering something online, wherever it is. When you really create context with the user, of course there's business. I've been able to sell millions of dollars of wine because I've answered their tweets and emails because we have a contextual relationship. They don't view me as just a logo. And so there's an enormous opportunity to monetize. The problem is everybody just thinks they can make content, push it out, and be done with it. That's when it starts.
As time goes by and more people are online and people have less and less free time available, what makes you stand out from the rest? How do you make your audience feel like there's a genuine interest in what you're putting out there?
It's not easy to just say, I'm awesome, so follow me. And I don't think that works. What you need to do is communicate with your followers and really build a strong base. Because once someone likes you on social media, it's very likely and it's easy for them to tell their friends.
To me, the most important thing about marketing is still the very original idea of marketing, and that's the exchange of benefits. And that's still the same today. You're just exchanging benefits, just different ways of doing it.
Users spend a quarter of their time on social networks, but there are 500 million Facebook users, 60 million on MySpace, 145 million Twitter users, and LinkedIn is up to 60 million. So it's not easy to skip through the clutter. consumers have to go through sorting, filtering, weighing, segmenting, and valuing the content on social networks and deciding what to spend the short attention span with. You have to truly capture what matters to them.
Does a brand have something genuinely good? Does it have a good story? A story that I will talk to you about, that you will talk to everybody else about. That's what I believe stands out, a strong idea. And then everything else is put around that, hopefully the right marketing, the right imaging. But at the end of the day, it has to have that core idea. And if that idea is strong enough, it will rise to the top. So I think that how do you stay differentiated is to have a point of view. That's what people want.
You have to interact with your followers, the more they're likely to spread the word about you. And basically, you want to be that thing that they're interested in. It's a lot of word of mouth, but on the internet.
There's no magic formula, and the brands have to find their own way of reaching out to communities. The secret of social media marketing is, in principle, the same secret for any marketing at all. Know the market, listen to the consumer, know what your benefits are, and communicate in a simple manner through the channels where your client really spends time.
The first thing to do is to try everything, to have a really open mind about the different platforms that are out there. It's actually quite fun to try different platforms as they begin to emerge. And the earlier you try them out, the sooner you'll learn how to use them. And if that platform scales, potentially you can have a very large following over time because you'll scale with the platform.
To make it big in social media, it's like you need to do it in a non-big brand way. It's not all lights and trumpets. It's got to be in a different way. It's revolving around communities or stories or stars or products.
The immediacy of social media and the explosion of digital touchpoints help brands reach out to consumers in new and innovative ways. Any size corporation can establish a direct conversation with their clients.
Basically being a platform for action, allowing the community of consumers to actually do something by being associated with that brand.
Don't be a salesman. I think it's very similar to how guys should get girls. Any guy that goes into a bar and starts throwing one-liners at girls is not going to get them. It's a slow pace. It's running a marathon instead of a sprint. Brands need to be patient and bring value. Best way to become a friend is to become a friend.
Simple is really important. If you go to a website and it looks all cluttered and complicated, odds are you're not going to stick around. And I don't mean simple as in the content as much as the interactivity of it. Is it really the kind of thing that I can figure out how to use immediately?
You need to truly involve them. People forget words, but they don't forget how they feel about something. And after all, we still do make 80% of our decisions emotionally.
From my standpoint, I very much believe that this is like push-ups. You can read about social media, you can talk a big game, but you're gonna get what you give. The people that execute the most are gonna have the highest results because they're creating the most context on a daily basis. Every moment to create context and engagement. Some people schedule 15 minutes a day, and that's whoever cares the most, answers the most, helps. Thank you represents you're welcome, I'm sorry, what can I do for you, what's wrong, awesome, daps, high five, wink. It represents all of it. The more you can create, the more you have with that person.
Consumers want from brands association, affiliation, satisfaction. They still want that relationship with the brands that they love, whether they look good, feel good, get more out of life. That's the dynamic. 96% of social media users believe companies should have a social media presence. And that says, I want you to be more accountable. I need to be able to get involved more, find out more about what you're doing, maybe even do something myself. That could be bad as well. There's a risk in that.
You can't just be regurgitating information and repeating what other people are saying. You really have to be original and be relatable and approachable.
Some brands are still nervous to put themselves out there as much because they fear the repercussions.
So, granted, it's important to be connected and make an effort to make the social media scene. But the questions come to mind. Is it the right choice for every company?
I think that it's important to have an online presence, but if you are not going to pay attention or have the time to spend nurturing your online audience, it might not be the best place for your brand.
A lot of the new focus for marketing is about your capability. What are you capable of doing? What's important is communicating that point of view. Get people online involved, let your voice be known, and get people to want to be part of what you have to say and get involved in that conversation.
Up next, why it's still scary for some brands to just put themselves out there, why bad conversation is still good for you, and what the risks of social media marketing are. Customers are now part owners of your brands and are helping to build and redefine the future of marketing.
Brands need to become more flexible, more functional, and they need to become more malleable. They need to be able to operate in a different way than they've done before. In many ways, before was an old model based on, awareness and interest. So marketing was put right up at the front. Big advertising, big TV, big brand activity. What's changed now is the relationship that consumers have with brands and the decisions they make with brands. And that's what marketing needs to be able to work out. We're not just talking social media. What lies beneath social media is the big change, and that's social sharing.
Well, now with all these brands going online and using social networks to get to their customers, I think it's important to keep your voice personal, because it's so easy to just start sounding like a press release or sounding like a marketing person. Instead of selling, you really have to engage with your community. So you want to be friends with your customers.
Marketers now have to start thinking of ways to include the consumer and find a way of working with them. The objective is to create ways for customers to spend time with the brand and allow them to share what they think and feel about the brand.
The fact that we are now societies, individuals, families, communities sharing our information with each other, that means that brands need to be a lot more open to suggestion and involvement from their customers. They are taking control of that brand's reputation. They are also pushing back on brands, and that means they're pushing back on marketing. It's changing the relationship that consumers have with brands and how they interact with brands. And their interaction with brands is something where they want to participate more. They want to be actively involved more.
But the idea of consumers being in charge of what happens with your brand might be a little scary. Big and traditional companies are still a little hesitant to embrace the conversation and understand the opportunity of investing in social media. A lot of major brands are still not convinced that social media is an investment rather than a cost.
When I was at the New York Times, some of the editors got mad at me because I was saying to their journalists, I want you to spend 50% of your time using social media to promote your journalism and to promote your articles. And the editor said, what are you doing? This is the New York Times. But I feel like in an era of perpetual me marketing, where people are turning more and more to Twitter and Facebook to get their news, it's really important to be sharing as much as possible. Everyone has to be web literate these days, actively engaging with these new platforms as they emerge.
Also, social media implies a risk that companies are, exposed. Generated content is everywhere, and people are going to be talking no matter how hard you try to stop them. Whether you do very well or have no one noticing you at all, it's right there for everyone to see how you succeed or fail. How do you break that wall? How do you convince a dinosaur that starting up a conversation with clients ultimately becomes sales?
Think about things like the engagement levels you're getting, the post-click page views, not judge the ROI of social media based entirely on the dollars that you make from advertising on it. Think about the next generation of your fans, followers, and subscribers. Social media is constantly innovating. New platforms are going to help you and your brand be perceived as innovative.
And how is it that you stand out when everyone is talking and we have so little time?
They have to stop trying to close business on the first move. It's so much keeping up with the Joneses. I'm doing it because my competitor's doing it, or everybody's doing it. Everybody was pushing, and now you've got to pull. How is a brand successful? You don't create a Facebook fan page and then just keep pushing out comments. You have to listen, you have to humanize your business, and that's how you'll be successful. There's really no other option. There's only one way to do it. Actually listen. I'm actually quite surprised and confused why people don't think it's real. Because Nielsen's hasn't come out and said, well, this is $3 for a fan on Facebook, 50 cents for a Twitter follower. There isn't the black and white numbers that marketers tend to like to rely on. And that's why the best people are going to win, because they're the ones that feel it in their heart, while everybody waits for the reports to justify it. They can't show you results on television, print, radio, or billboards either. They can't. What they've got is reports, not results.
Ultimately, marketers, companies, and even consumers need to understand that although much has changed, most of it hasn't changed.
Social media is the term we're using for news sites where we engage. This is the maturity of the internet, period. I made money on the internet. Justin Bieber became famous and made money on the internet. Amazon built its business on the internet. Netflix built its business on the internet. You know, it's all internet. And what happens is there's levels of the internet maturing and changing. The consumer has a much bigger voice. So you have to have a different skill. Because of the tools that have been built on the internet, we've now gone to a cocktail party. So you have to know how to work a room and know people. The businesses that both understand that and execute it will win. I don't see a single business in the world that can be successful without executing this long term. Every day, when Apple launches a television and you're using your iPad as a remote control, TV's gonna have to deal with that. When a refrigerator acts like Pandora and knows what you put in and starts reordering food for you, you're gonna have to adjust to that. This is just the beginning. I look at social media as the internet, and I look at the internet for businesses like breathing. What's the ROI of oxygen? A lot. It's the whole game. I view internet as the platform to do business going forward because it's where the human beings are interacting and living their lives.
Ultimately, you need customers and you want to appeal to customers and you want to involve yourself in their life, in how they think. But are they going to decide? I've never met a customer that's a visionary. People don't like change. Consumers aren't going to tell you about the next big thing. They're going to react to the next cool thing. And if they like it, they're going to make it a huge success. But I think the role of marketing has always been about word of mouth.
The job of marketing experts is to understand the tools that they are dealing with and realize that the goal is to create content that interests consumers and to help brands understand that by engaging with their audiences, they generate a sense of loyalty and interest with the brand. And even if you can't measure results, these relationships do turn into sales.
Conversation listening turns into a relationship. Every person watching this video right now buys something based on a relationship. Your brother worked there. Your aunt used to work there. Some reason that you're buying from a place that has nothing to do with advertising. Context. When you create a relationship with a consumer, they buy your stuff. I'm not sitting here guessing that this is what's gonna happen. I've been doing this for 6 years. I know when somebody asks what Merlot goes with, lamb, and I go in, Johnny, I'm a big fan of Millbrand Merlot from New Zealand, and I don't say go to Wine Library and buy it, or go watch my show and buy it. I just give an answer, or what kind of lamb are you having? I'm just there as a service. I know what happens next is 2 or 3 months later, I go back and look, and he became a new customer. Maybe not that day, but a week or 2 or a month or later, because a relationship has been formed. It's the same reason you will do something more for your mother than you will for your brother or sister, and more for a stranger. It's context ladder. You create a relationship with the people that actually spend money, that they're gonna spend money with you. There's really nothing to debate. That's insanity. This is why everybody's grandparents, your grandparents are dramatically better at understanding where the world's going, because they used to do business that way. And that's where we're going as the world becomes more connected.
Seems like not much has changed, and yet so much is changing every day. If brands are able to foster and nurture the relationship with their audiences, they might just be able to reach out and understand how social media turns into a purchase.
I do believe, yes, that people, wanting to be part or associated with McDonald's does turn into sales. But I think the important priority for brands is not to look at it as the number one priority. It's the conversation, it's the community, it's the involvement, it's the participation, which ends up being loyalty and word of mouth. And I think that's what you want.
It's taking advantage that people do care, and today more than ever, brands are part of who they are.
Lipstick.
Brands help build the identity of people, much in the same way that people help create brand identity. The brands people wear and consume say something about them. Are they passionate about sports? Do they have a strong stand about being responsible with the environment? Are they cool and trendy? Who you follow on Twitter and what brands you like on Facebook matters.
You are willing to become friends with Prada on Facebook, and over the course of a year, if properly done by Prada, you'll start talking to Prada like a girlfriend more so than a brand. And we're starting to see that with some of the brands we're working with, where people are literally going to them, literally talking to them like, what do you think about Nicki Minaj's new song? We've done it with a lot of things, and I think we're about to do it with brands.
There is no silver bullet or secret formula. To be successful in social media is much harder than having a Facebook fan page, a Twitter account, and posting on your blog. It's about building a real relationship with the community and keeping that relationship going. That's hard for marketers to do, and it's not something that all consumers want. That's all for this episode of Market. but join us on our next episode as we try to explore the issues of privacy and expansion in this social media shenanigan. What are the strategies and uses that companies are applying to social media? Why is Twitter useful? And what is waiting for us in the future?